Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Blair. I'm the founder and CEO of Batik Boutique. We're a social enterprise based in Malaysia, working with hand-dyed textiles and making really fun, amazing apparels and homewares and gifts for the whole world. Our mission is to disrupt the cycle of poverty in Malaysia, and we do that through giving people real life skills and jobs and income through this super cool fabric called batik that's traditional from this part of the world. And I'm happy to be here today.
Okay, so I am like literally picking off parts of the world, and I'm like, I love that you're in Malaysia. Score! This is fantastic.
Yeah, like no one knows where that is anyway, just so you know. But
well,
that's right.
It's like, it is a shame because in the States, as we know, we have geography classes. We have them. And yet the second that someone walks out of geography classes, no one remembers. No one remembers at all. Yeah. So yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there.
We've got a lot of states.
Let's talk about that right now. Let's do a geography class for all the individuals that are listening right now to find out where is Malaysia. And let's just talk about very short, because I want to talk about who you are first. How did you get there?
Yeah, that's a funny question, isn't it? So Malaysia is this small country of about 30 million people, about the size of Texas, which is where I'm originally from. And it is in Southeast Asia. So it's funny, most people have heard of Singapore or Thailand. And the funny story is Singapore used to actually be part of Malaysia, and Malaysia's in between Singapore and Thailand. So I'm not sure where we got lost. Everyone knows Bali, everyone knows Thailand and Singapore, but actually we're like just right in the middle there. Really cool tropical place. It's summer year round here. We have hot and rainy, and that's the like kind of two seasons we get. So my background, I'm actually from Texas originally, I said. My background's in tourism and in customer service and hospitality industry. So I came to Malaysia actually 14 years ago on a 2-year contract working.
Wait. So much that you're saying. So much. And I have to get a fan, because as you're talking about Malaysia, I'm like, you got hot. I'm starting to get hot right now. Okay, so wait.
I just sweat like for a living, just so you know. I just sweat all the time.
Because the best part is you talk just as fast as I do, which is awesome. People are like, they're like, I go, you talk fast. I go, it's not talking fast. It's the fact that we're passionate about what we do. There's a difference. So rewind. So now we have a little bit of taste of Malaysia, but let's talk about who Amy is first before, because there's you have so much to unravel. You said you were from Texas. Talk about when you're an entrepreneur. Are you an entrepreneur because this is the family that you came from in Texas, entrepreneurship? Or, what does the family do, and what did you do before? Because you said that you were in sales.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm from a small town in Texas. Small town. Went to university.
What's the name of the town?
Texarkana. It's on the border of Texas and Arkansas. Yeah. I went to Texas A&M University.
Love it. I went to University of Houston for a bit.
Oh, nice. We're like neighbors.
Yeah, Texas A&M parties were amazing.
Yeah. No, this is so far away from any way I grew up. Literally, I'm from the most non-diverse background of a school and even town where I lived, small, and when I was at university, it was probably the first time I even encountered anyone really not like myself, if that makes sense. So that was really fascinating for me. I was always intrigued. My degree was in communication, and my favorite subject was the intercultural communication stuff. So I've always really liked people different than me. I don't have a background in entrepreneurship, but my father, actually, it's a funny story. He was a police chief where I grew up. So I couldn't get away with anything, because somebody told him, or somehow he found out, or he just made me think he knew and I confessed or something. I'm not sure. But but my dad actually was a huge inspiration for me just in all of this, because he always was bringing in new programs for less fortunate, or working in just the flats where we lived, or places like that, drug resistance programs, community health things. He really used his platform for diversity and for helping less fortunate people. Yeah. So as a kid, he took me around with him. I probably was very much exposed to just differences more than I understood at the time, and really saw a person of service and of community. And so that's always really stuck with me, and I think really shaped just who I am. And so I've always been attracted to people different than me, which, coming from my small town in Texas, there wasn't a lot to work with there. So in college, I started traveling a bit in the summers, right? So I would go teach English somewhere. I ended up in Turkey, which I thought that was the thing you ate at Thanksgiving. I didn't realize it was, again, my geography there. I didn't actually know it was a country, right? But I think just through traveling and through my parents' influence of just kind of more nonprofit work, it really shaped kind of what I wanted to be about and what I wanted to do. So I got a job like everybody.
But the thing is, so you, I mean, traditionally, as everyone sees, a parent, I mean, I'm going to actually use an example of a former love. I always say former love, like former boyfriend, like ex-boyfriend, former love, Peachtree, Georgia, PK. His dad was a preacher and he was a PK, and his best friend, his dad was the head of DEA, and his best friend got in trouble all the time with drugs. And so you just say traditionally, when your parents have these roles, you want to try to stand out on your own by doing things like, that will shake it up a little bit. And you were saying how, like, obviously you couldn't get away with anything because of the town that you lived in, and everyone would call your dad. But how, like, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I've got one brother.
Yeah,
older.
Traditionally, it's very hard to define who you are when you have a dad or a mom that have these roles. And again, whether it's like a teacher, whether it's a PK, I mean, whether it's a preacher, whether it's a priest, there's all these expectations of you, and you're like, because of these expectations, and I'll even use the Disney kids where I'm expected to be a good kid, and they're like, you know what, let me shake it up by doing a movie or a Harry Potter, where Harry Potter just did plays. So like all these expectations and all these thoughts that are in people's heads. And now you decide to start traveling around the world. What were the thoughts of the exactly, like you could see it right now, like I'm like, the people. So your parents are influencing you inside the house. People on the outside don't know that. You're from a small town, tight knit. What are people starting to say or think? And how are they trying to get into your head, influence you by like, what are you doing traveling around all these different worlds where we have a beautiful community right here?
Well, let me first say that I did plenty of things to try to rebel against all of the rules that were set before me. Okay, we won't talk about all of those because this is recorded for the internet. But I guess my rebellious ways later in life became a bit like, oh yeah, like I'm from this place where everyone's the same. Like I just want to do something different. So probably that inspired me to travel really. And I didn't travel to like normal places. That's the next part of me, right? I'm talking about Turkey, Malaysia, like people are like, I'm sorry, where? I've been to Iraq, I've been to Iran, I've been to Egypt, Cairo, like just crazy places. And I haven't been to like some of the most normal places, like, I don't know, Italy or something.
Neither have I.
Like South America, so I think probably that little streak inside of me, which we can get into later, actually helps you be a good entrepreneur. But that streak, that little like difference and that little like can't quite fit in the box or want my lane wider or something, like can't quite like follow all the rules. Like, yeah, it super helps you in running a business. Right. But that's a lot of it is come of that a bit rebellion. So I kind of went to see where's the furthest place I can go and what's the like most extreme thing I can do or something with my traveling. And
but how did the community see you? Because I mean, these are individuals that you went to school with.
Oh yeah.
So how do your family, your friends?
There's like I'm kind of known for these things. This is some of me. I've always been a person who, again, this is coming from my father as well, but I've always been a person who stands up for like the underdog and kind of who, if something's not right, like I'll voice out about like, hey, why, like I'll ask a question of why are we do this if, so on some level, I think it doesn't surprise people because of just my demeanor. And I'm generally pretty friendly person who kind of makes friends along the way. So I think that part didn't surprise them, but also, I'm a bit like, I was the roommate in college who the night we were supposed to be studying for exams decided we should paint our bedrooms or something, or like, dress up in prom dresses and go to the grocery store. I mean, like just like random stuff. So again, I don't
like
think
that.
Someone who knows me like wouldn't totally be shocked by this, but yeah, I mean, it blew my little town away because, I remember one time, I think all I did was like go teach English one summer in Turkey, right? Like, this is not like a big thing. Like, it's like a month of my life here, right? And whatever. But this little small town, like magazine at the time, I mean, this is, I don't know, a long time ago. They were like, they wanted to write an article about me. And I was like, wait, did no one leave? Like, am I the only person that ever left this place? So at some level, it's like you're a bit weird and awkward and they don't know what to do with you. But another level, I think people in general, like really, honestly, like we kind of admire people who just don't follow the status quo. Like if there's a reason, I don't mean just be like random for no reason, but So at some level, I kind of became a little bit of a minor celebrity, also because of my dad was also kind of a minor celebrity. So it was like, his like junior version kind of thing. Yeah. So I think now the comments are funny. Like one time I had a guy ask me at church, I went to church with my parents, and that was like a shocker after living in another country without churches, like for 2 years. And they're doing the like stand up and greet and shake the hand thing,
Yep.
When we shook hands, like pre-COVID, you used to touch people. I mean, you should like shake hands, right?
Catholic, I know. Like, I mean, it's the whole entire, like, hug, kiss, and the whole entire thing. Yep.
I think one day my dad was so excited to have us back visiting. He was like greeting some guy, and he was like, "Hey, this is my daughter. She lives in Malaysia." Like this, and the guy goes, "Malaysia?" This is like Texas guy, it's like, "Malaysia? Where's that? In South America?" And I was just like, oh my God, I just spent my 2 years of my life, and this guy just asked me if I've been in South America, So again, things like that have been where I come from. Is just like, I mean, I didn't even own a passport or hadn't left the state hardly, except maybe like twice ever. So yeah, it's a really big deal for people to get out of there. So needless to say, I didn't go back, like in terms of like, even my parents actually moved to Dallas, like a bigger city, which helped me when I'd come back to visit it's a little more diverse and a little more, fast paced and things that are a bit more my style. But yeah, they're good people though. Good people.
No, you know what? I always say to people,
small world.
Well, I always say, like, I go wherever I go, whether it's big or small. I mean, I live in a quintessential New England town, 20,000 residents, 16 miles from Boston. But I always say to everyone where, you know what, I enjoy where I am, because if anything else, you are the point of education. You are the point of opening up the minds of other people. They may not know now when they're talking to you, and you may like, I mean, there are times where I'm like, I go, in my mind, I'm like, okay, don't roll your eyes in front of them. Just do it in your head. Just do it in your head. But then you're like realizing we are the ones that do it for other people that will never do it. Yeah. Okay.
So like to know in here, because again, I think people want to do something. It's just, there's different people who actually do it and who just like kind of want to and don't. So yeah.
The doers. I mean, we are doers. We're absolutely doers. Where I go. So walk me through, like, so you did 1 month teaching English in Turkey, and then from that point on, what happens then? So like, walk me through till let's just like your first job. So from that point to your first job.
Yeah. So my first job, actually, my minor was in tourism management, and I got really, apparently I enjoyed this travel thing. So I kind of like went anywhere I could, anytime I could. I got a bit fascinated with the Middle East and like Arab culture and people, and even like Islam a bit, because it was so different than any, it was kind of like 9/11 had happened, and, just different things in that day and time. And I was fascinated with, I had made some good friends at school who were Muslim, and they were like, so not like anything I saw happening on television. So I just became, again, my background in communication, I became pretty fascinated with like people and cultures. And so I did a lot of travel. My first job after university was actually at a nonprofit that actually did tourism, working with groups and churches and like universities, sending people to do these programs like teach English and stuff. So I coordinated all of their travel and a lot of their training. So what that meant for me is I also got to travel and lead some of these groups to places. So that was really fascinating. So that was a big part of my life, and I got to see the world and do it while I was getting paid barely any money, but I was sort of getting paid at a nonprofit. But yeah, so that was my first job, and it led me to want to do more in terms of like, but I wanted to get back to the hospitality industry. And so that's where this opportunity came. Actually, I moved to Connecticut for a while, speaking up kind of more in your neighborhood. And helped our friends of ours work with a nonprofit that was partnering with Yale for a while about interfaith dialogue. And it was very academic, and I enjoyed the startup side of it. So I helped with like fundraising and like the programs and facilities and things. But the content was like just engaging at a level like way over my head. So I was just sitting there fascinated that people actually were having conversations about stuff I could not even understand. But I also realized like through that was a kind of a starting thing. So I guess that was kind of my first like startup kind of job. It wasn't mine, but I worked in it, and I learned a lot just from the grassroots and bootstrapping and ground up type things. And then this opportunity came up with some friends of mine to come to Malaysia. And I had actually traveled once to Malaysia, and of all the places I had been in the world, I loved every place I've been, but it was probably the one place I actually said, that was a nice trip, but I couldn't ever see myself living there. Every other place I practically planned out my life. Every time I went there, I was like, I had like 5 years down and I had this condo on the Bosphorus and this, and I was going to do this. And yeah, I don't know why. Well, first of all, I'm like 5'8". And I like am gigantic here compared to like the Asian version of Malays and Malay. They're just small people. So like I felt like the Jolly Green Giant, and my hair, my eyes, like nothing about
well, I was gonna say, I usually don't even think about the height because I can't tell. I mean, I can't tell how tall you are from here. But I'm like
average tall for
American. Exactly. So like I go, when you're in Malaysia, I'm like, it's not like you stand. I mean, you stand out. I mean, when I went to Beijing, literally people were like, I go, can we take a photo with you? I'm like, I go, oh right, I stand out here in Beijing. So yes, I totally get that.
And I didn't like that. So I liked the Middle East more when I could, kind of blend in. I could fit more, if I dress a certain way or something, like put some sunglasses on, no one kind of really can tell the difference. And, but here is like, there's nothing I can hide. I mean, like nothing. And I didn't like that. I didn't like being stared at. I didn't like the food. I mean, I loved other types of food at places. It was a lot of rice and a lot of carbs. But
the thing is, like,
no girl like me needs to be eating carbs all the time. So I was
but the thing is, like, you just said like you don't like to stand out. I go, and by default, as a child of a father that's like your father was a star within a small town, you stood out no matter what. And then all of a sudden now you're in a place where like, oh, people are noticing me. Where is the disconnect there? Because you were noticed no matter what when you're growing up.
Totally extreme. I mean, I like to stand out in like what I do. I think it was more like I physically didn't want to stand out. I never was a minority. I mean, get this, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a white girl from a upper class, middle class town, small town, East Texas. Like, I never knew what it was like, apart from being a woman. But even then, my father was very empowering to me. So he always told me I can do whatever I want. So I never really felt this thing that girls feel or that a minority race feels. I never felt any of that really, right?
Yep.
So now all of a sudden, I'm like thrust into this world where like everybody stares at me and like, I don't like what they're staring at and like their comments. And I was trying to learn language and I could start understanding. And I was just like, and generally speaking, I'm from the South where everyone compliments everyone about everything, whether they mean it or not. Girl, I like that. Where'd you get it? Your hair, this, like we just tell each other all these nice
Everyone
things.
Says good morning. Everyone's like making, yes, exactly.
Hello.
Like, that's the biggest thing where it's like, I go, I always know when someone sees me, they're like, I did a speaking engagement a few weeks back and wow, a young lady, so like, I go, hello, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm like, you're from the South. And she's like, how do you know? I'm like, we don't say that up here. We don't greet people that way.
Yes.
Exactly. I go, so it is really interesting that you were like, oh my God, what is happening here?
Yeah. And I never had, just different ways. And sometimes it's like I was a celebrity because I was different. But other times I've been majorly discriminated against because I'm different. So that's all of that. It was more extreme. So I like attention. I mean, I like attention. I'm generally like in a group of people, like I'll end up being the one that's like this is just me, but this is like another level. This was like, it was too extreme because it was either like all negative attention or completely positive. So I had just gotten married and my husband and I moved to Malaysia together and he lived in Afghanistan before we got married, if that tells you anything about this combo we've got going on. So we're just a little bit out there. And so here we are now in Malaysia. And so like, we'd only been married, like not even 2 years when we got here. And like, we're not planning to start a family yet because we just moved across the world and sold all of our belongings and said goodbye to everything. So like, I wasn't trying to also like get a baby at the same time. Right. And so here we are. And like everybody we would meet, people would come to us and be like, oh, how long have you been married? And we're like, oh, we're like newlyweds thinking like, oh, a year and a half or so. And they'd be like, what's wrong? We're like, what's what? Like, we didn't even know what they meant, and they're like, why are you not pregnant?
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's there's a whole plan with why I'm not pregnant, and then they just couldn't understand, like, why would you do that? And there's this whole, in this culture, there's this whole, like, it's a bit like prove your fertility straight away. You need to get pregnant now. Like you get married and you just try to get pregnant right away. You can stop after that. It's not like you need to keep going. It's just like, you just need to prove that it all works. And then people will back off you. You get one, you can wait like 4 more years, no big deal, but you don't get one in that literally your first year. And it's so people would come give my husband like special coffee at their house. And he like, it supposedly had like, vitamins or something in it, or they would ask me if I was okay, but it was this weird talk that like, we just didn't do that where I come from. Like, you don't ask those questions. Or like,
so you're learning about, so you're there. I'm so sorry to interrupt. So you're in there and you are now learning about, so you decide to leave, you're like, again, you're newlyweds. you're in a new culture. So there was a little thing about something that you missed out. So you are there because friends asked you to come, or so
Yeah.
I'm
So
missing that little beat where we went so quickly.
Yeah. Sorry. They're working for a company and we had this opportunity to explore. It was like reviewing for hotels and resorts and facilities. Okay. And they had this, they were working mostly in Central and South America, like villas, beach resorts, like more 5-star level. Yeah. Well, they had this clientele coming from the UK. They knew Americans wouldn't travel this far to book with them, but they had these British like clients coming from there that they thought maybe as opposed to go to Central South America, they could also go to Asia. Yep. So they picked a tropical place and based in Malaysia. That's how Malaysia came up. Because it has good international airports and things, and you could go to Bali and Phuket and all these cool places that have villas and more and so they wanted someone to come out there to do research to see if it's a viable market, to try to market their products and villas and hotels in this region and which ones. And so we would have to review it. We would have to go, this is the other side of my life now. Okay. I'm like the Jolly Green Giant who's like, why are you not pregnant? And you're so huge, to like, I'm reviewing 5-star resorts like at the Bulgari where the Prince of Saudi Arabia is visiting in Bali. I mean, I can't explain this stuff, So that's what I did. I got paid to tell 5-star resorts what was wrong with them.
which you know what? Which is in true reality, that's not a bad gig. Not a bad
which
gig
is about the opposite of my life right now. I'm just going to tell you.
So how did we get to where we are right now? So I mean,
well, that was 14 years ago. Where do you want me to start?
Well, there's two things. So number one is, how did you meet your spouse? Because now are you meeting in the States, in Texas, in your town? Are you meeting in Dallas? Where did you guys meet? And also, how did you get to the point where are you guys doing business together? And then we could start talking about the business.
Okay. So this is funny. He's actually from a small town called Tyler, which is like 3 hours away from Texarkana, but it's a very similar small town thing. Mm-hmm. We actually went to the same university, but it's huge. So we didn't even know each other there because it's just huge. And he's a few years older than me. He's an engineer. We have very similar upbringings. Our families both live in the same city now. It's just funny, right? So you would think that we would have met there, but we actually met in Turkey.
People just don't realize how big Texas is. So
we had to go to
New England, I can get in my car and I can drive 2 hours, and I've gone through New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut. I go, where for you guys, like I go, and I was just like, again, recently in California where I was through the Big Sur 8 hours, and I'm like, why am I still in the Big Sur? So in Texas, I remember the same thing from Houston driving to Florida. Everyone's like, how long is that going to take? I go, a long time, a long time. So although it's big, doesn't mean that you're going to ever see someone that you would ever,
No. So we met in Turkey. We were both traveling. So he worked.
Wait, you've been in Turkey?
Yeah, on one of the trips. So we both ended up on the same trip to Turkey teaching English there. Nice. And he was working at the time. I was still in university. He was working as an engineer and just took time, like a holiday kind of thing, to go there. He actually ended up in Afghanistan after that. I was so amazing to him. He left the country and decided to go to Afghanistan, of all places. But he was working
on holiday or for work.
No, he lived there for 2 years before we were just friends, but he was working as an engineer, but also working with an NGO there, and actually a local NGO doing like really cool projects like clean water campaigns, having Taliban turn in their weapons to get business loans. He lived with Afghans. He learned Dari, which is the local language. Like he lived very, very local. I mean, he was a single guy. He had a friend with him. 2 of them did it. And he had the greatest experience in the world of it. Meanwhile, I was like, gallivanting all over the Middle East and the world on the other side, doing all this traveling. And he was living in this one place and has crazy stories, very interesting. So when he came back to visit his family, actually, just after his 2-year contract was over, he had planned to go back. And then we kind of reconnected and realized at that point, we're like, I was working now and just different stage of life. Right. And kind of realized, it's funny. We realized we had a lot of the same vision and values in life. And so we connected very deeply, very quickly, but we would joke what's your middle name? And what do you like to do? We kind of had this like deep connection and had to try to work it backwards. Do we actually like each other? Do we want to spend time together? So it was actually very quick. We knew each other years, but we actually only dated 3 months, and then we got engaged, and then 3 months later we got married. So within 6 months this happened.
I always tell people when you know, don't waste time. When you know,
Yeah. And we ended up, that's where we both knew, because we were doing this stuff independently of one another. So it was like, we knew that this was something in our future. And I think we wanted to try to live abroad, maybe before kids was kind of the idea, you know what I mean? Like get this thing out and then come settle down like you're supposed to do, I guess. So that was a long time ago. Here we are.
So now you're here in Malaysia.
Yeah, so we got in Malaysia actually with my job, and then he decided to do an MBA because again, this was only a 2-year gig as well, right? So in that time, he could do his MBA. I did the travel. My first child, I have 3 kids. My first child was born during that first 2 years. Thank God that coffee must have worked or something, but I had to prove it. I had to prove that I could do this too. Oh, and you should see when they see like, you know, a Caucasian woman pregnant in this place that you just like, I think they didn't think we knew how to do this or how to make a baby or something. The stares you would get would just be like, yeah, we did this too, you know? So my first son was born here, and actually all 3 of my kids were born here, but, and then that kind of changed everything different. I mean, here we were, these young, practically like, you know, just like do what you want people, and, doing our thing. And then a child obviously comes in the mix, and that changed things. And I think we realized, so we had planned eventually 2 years and then come back or something, or move somewhere else. We kind of thought maybe we'd live in another country, like just try people out. But we really loved Malaysia. That's what happened. So we fell in love with the culture, the people, as much as I'm joking about it. Like I genuinely love this place and the people, and it's stunning. The people are stunning, but the landscape, the culture, like it's just so rich and so stunning and so different.
Well, I mean, honestly, all the pictures that they like people ever post, like, I mean, they're mind blowing. They're absolutely mind blowing in every single way.
Yeah. And so people want to go to Hawaii, and I'm like, Malaysians want to go to Hawaii. And I'm like, why guys? Like, just like go 3 hours to the coast and you're like, this better, you know? So so I think the next steps was we started a family, and then we realized it's really hard to settle somewhere else. Like we were learning language, culture, you know, just lively, like where to buy things, what to cook, what to eat, how to make friends, relationships, like all the stuff you take for granted when it's your natural culture, or if you've like never moved anywhere, but also doing it in other languages and far away from family and stuff. So I think we realized how difficult it was to really settle in a place, and we had like good friends and felt like somewhat fit. And so now had this new baby, you know, and we were kind of like, I just don't have it in me right now in the midst of this new life change also to like up and do this again for fun, like go some other country, like what for? And we felt like there was a lot left here and a lot of potential and a lot of untapped opportunity as well. So I took some time off from my job. I finished my contract and just didn't renew. And then he ended up getting a job in the capital here. So we were on this little island called Penang, and we ended up moving to Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital, because there's just more opportunity, especially for foreigners, you know, here. And he started consulting and like had different projects. And we kind of just like, he kind of just went from one thing to the next. He got a couple local partners. And so it was really him doing things. And this is where I was staying home. I had another child in the midst of this. So there are 2 boys that are 2 years apart. And so I was just kind of doing the like toddler life mommy thing. But I'm not a person who can like, I'm just not like, I can't just do that. Like I mean, people who can actually, I super respect, because I'm just like, I cannot like, I need something else at the same time. So I would bake. I mean, I needed anything, you know, some outlet, like, especially creativity, I realized. So in this time, I met these ladies. This is now where Batik Boutique, my company, comes in. So in this time, I met these ladies who lived at the low cost, like government housing, like the flats, the ghetto over here, right? And one of them wanted some work. And I'm like, it's very normal to have people like cook and clean and stuff for you in this part of the world. But I was doing the stay-at-home mom thing, and I had left a job. So for me, I was also like, no, that's like what I do now. Like, this is my only identity, is to do this, you know? So you cannot do this. So then I decided, okay, well, you could babysit because I need a break and I need to get some coffee and go to the gym or something. And anyways, I asked this lady, her name's Anna. And I asked her, could she teach me language? It's called Bahasa. Could she teach me the local language? And she's not a teacher. I mean, she's just like a lady from the flats, right? And I said, that's actually better. Just talk to me. Let me record things, ask you questions, write things. So that's where, when I began to deeper understand the language and understand her story, well, we became really good friends. My kids, you know, call her auntie, and like, you know, she was there and we were just talking all the time. And her story went that she was a single mom who has just been trying to make ends meet, raising kids by herself, struggled because she couldn't find a job that like gave her the hours that she needed to work to also take care of kids, because her education level was like, you know, it was like the level where she could work like at a grocery store, Speed Mart, a factory. And those are and like retail, they're very long hours, right? So how do you if you're the only person caring for your kids and you can't afford childcare, like how do you work like these long hour jobs that you're qualified for when really you also need to be there, hours for your kids as well. So she was a bit stuck. Then she didn't have transportation. Then there was no local transportation that far out. And it was just kind of like this. And so we began dialoguing, but she wanted to work and needed to, but it just was a challenge to figure out how to do all that.
Yep.
So I think that's where I connected with her as a mother, first of all, because I was a new mom and like now I'm home with these little people all the time. But I knew for the first time really what it meant to like literally have your heart like out on little people, walking around. And because we became friends, the main thing I understood, like we look so different, we eat so different, we speak so different, like if you put us beside each other, these people are never going to be friends. Right. But actually we're like super close. And what I realized through all of this, and this ties back into just my upbringing and my exposure to, even my degree and different things, end of the day, people are people. I mean, that's the thing, right? Women 100%. Are women, mothers are mothers. So there's nothing else. She doesn't want anything less for her children than I want for mine. Mm-hmm. Okay. You know the difference? Where she was born.
Yep.
Only thing different to me is what I was born into. And that's not a choice that I made, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a choice she made. And so that key, this goes back to this like injustice thing in me, right? Where I'm like, that key about, look, oh my God, we're actually like the same, but we just got born into something different, which gave us different opportunities along the way. And like, that's the difference. And so I kind of made this commitment at the time, like, okay, forever, however long I'm here in this place, which again, I thought wasn't going to be very long, but here I am, was as long as I'm here, then I want to do something like to give other women an opportunity to like have opportunity. I mean, that's all it is. It's create opportunity for people. You can't change someone's life. They did that themselves. Right. But you can give opportunity and give skills. And so that's the whole story of how my company actually started, was based on this woman. Cause long story short, she owned an old sewing machine. Mm-hmm. And like, I didn't know a thing about sewing, and I tried to get her to bake, but she didn't have an oven and couldn't bake. And then we tried to do like catering and she couldn't cook. And I was like, okay, what can you do? I have this machine. And I'm like, well, I don't sew. So we figured it out and like started making stuff, and that's like yada, yada, yada. I mean, the rest is kind of history. There's lots of women like her who needed opportunity, basically.
So you, one, I think that's phenomenal, because so many people do not see all those connections and all those, like, I go, oh, we're connecting and we're finding ways to, like, I go, not only are we connecting, but I'm going to sit there and find a way to solve this problem, because this was the problem. And I'm like, I'm going to find a way to solve the problem. I go in, she couldn't, like you just said, she couldn't cook, she couldn't do this, she couldn't do this. I go, I'm going to still find a way to solve this problem. At the beginning, you described a certain material that is known to the area. And so how did this material come into play of this relationship between you and Anna?
So this, go back to tourism now in my job when I was working. The biggest thing I realized, this is different. Like, I mean, I was doing hotels and hospitality, but a major observation I had was in Malaysia, where I was living, we have the same like crafters and skills and handicraft and tourism products, that they have in like Indonesia and Bali and Thailand. We have the same concept. But when I would travel there, these other places to review places, I love to go shopping. So I would love to like buy something for somebody from that, but I want it to be authentic from that place.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I could see a story or whatever with it. And then I would come back to Malaysia and I would be in this stunning place that's totally untapped and has so much potential. But I would go to the night bazaar, different place, the tourist shop or whatever. And the stuff there, I could tell was actually like imported from China, or actually wood from Thailand.
I think, I think that's the most frustrating. It's so frustrating though, because I feel like I travel like you. I travel around the world. And when you pick it up and you see made in China and you're in this amazing place, nothing about this makes sense to me. I understand the whole entire concept of making money off of tourism, but everything is being fueled by one country when it can be created in this country.
Yeah, give the people there a job, right?
Absolutely.
So back in that, before I met Anna even, I always thought this is such a like waste. Like I just was frustrated with like, I knew we had the crafters and the skill sets, but like it would either be really expensive, like nice, or, you're not going to buy that like for your sister or your friend, like it's like off the charts, or like the zipper's broken or the lining is like a green and the bag is orange or something, like things your eye just like, as a Westerner, like your eye just can't handle it, the color combo. So so previous to meeting Anna, I thought I had this idea that, those things you notice and you're like, oh, somebody should do something about that. Right. So this was my like, oh, somebody should do something about this. Now that was never going to be me, by the way. I was just like, someone should, like, there's this gap in the tourism industry here. And I knew from tourism perspective, when you travel, you spend more money, you don't understand the currency. You just throw it out like Monopoly. Like, what color do I need to give you for this?
Exactly.
Like,
or like, what's the t-shirt I'm going to bring back to, like, Uncle Joe?
Yeah, you're just relaxed. And so you're more willing to spend, right? It's a holiday. So I was like, guys, like then country, I felt like was kind of missing out on this opportunity because you've got these people, kind of stuck, here visiting you and want to purchase something, but we're not giving them something that I thought was, wanted to be purchased. So I always thought like, someone should do something in that industry. And then when I fast forward, because with Anna, I had tried, like I did some baking for fun. I was telling you, like, and decorating things, like just literally a hobby I had when I was a stay-at-home mom. And so I tried to get her to bake and like that didn't work. And then she was doing some cooking for us. And my husband, who's like super easy to please with food, kind of came to me one day and was like, Amy, it's all like brown sauce. Everything's brown. It's like a red or a brown, like a same, like it's fine. Like, because she like do something else, he was just kind of like, can we get some variety? And so that's when I realized, okay, maybe that's not it. And so when it clicked with me that she had the sewing machine, I remember this thought I had back in the day of tourism of like, someone should do something about that. So this is where this concept of batik. So our company name is Batik Boutique. But batik is actually a famous textile from this region of the world. Started in Indonesia, it's been in Malaysia, and it's this hand printed fabric that you use a hot wax. So it's like if you touch a candle and you like put on your fingers and it gets cold, we put these like stamps in a big melted pot of wax and stamp fabric, and only then you paint it and layer it and process it. And it takes days to make each piece, and it's all hand painted and really hard to do. Very amazing art. And it's really undervalued here locally. And so it's fascinating to see that. If you ever saw it, like you would just buy everything in my store and anywhere that looks decent, because it's so complicated and like, it's just stunning to watch. So that's how that got started. I don't come from a textile background. I'm not a designer. I didn't have a business. Like I literally had a friend and I was trying to help her out. And I had this background. Okay, we should use this fabric. I knew nothing about it really. And I'm kind of like this accidental entrepreneur, that happened along the way. But then I discovered that I liked it and I was okay at it. I was pretty good at it. And so I just keep going with it and keep expanding and keep doing different things. But we all keep, even today, like I can kind of tell you where we are today in a bit if you want, but it's so much at a different place. I mean, it's like a proper business now, but still the DNA of our community, like we still work in the same community where the flats Anna lives. I still, talk to her. She comes by the store sometimes and stuff like that. And like, we are working with.
Wait. All right. So again, lots of things to ask you. We have a short period of time. So we're going to do a rapid fires of like getting like a lot of, there's just a lot to ask right now. Number one, you created this business, so Anna is not involved in this?
She was in the beginning, but then later on her eyesight kind of went bad and she ended up getting married and moved to a village like a couple hours away. So we're still in touch. Like actually, I just messaged with her a couple of days ago. She comes back to the city. When she comes, I see her and stuff. But for the first couple of years, she was a major part of this because it was really for her. I created a whole business model around helping her have sustainability, have livelihood. And so it was about her sewing everything and me learning how to buy zippers and, come up with like patterns of things that I knew nothing about and stuff like that.
I know there was one that I saw that was a triangle, which I love, that I'm going to definitely like highlight a lot because I thought it was the coolest thing. We're going to pause on the business because again, like you just gave me so much, which I love, but there's still so much to ask you. So it's going to be like rapid questions here.
Ready.
March 2020 comes in. Tourism is a big thing for where you live. The pandemic the buzz starts happening. The pandemic happens. Tell me quickly in regards of like, which is so horrible that I'm just saying, tell me quickly, but how did the pandemic affect you, your business, and your family?
Wow. I'm not sure I can rapid fire this one. But
I know. I mean, it's one of those moments where like, it's such a big thing, especially because Malaysia and Bali are known for tourism.
Yeah. And a lot of my retail customers were coming from Tourism TripAdvisor, those kind of things, and everything shut. So the government gave us 24-hour notice that all businesses closed. So I had 24 hours to close two outlets at the time. I have 3 now, but 2 outlets. All my like staff in my office, none of who had ever worked from home, like ever, didn't even own computers. So we were literally not even sitting just laptops. We were sitting like PCs home with people. We were just like 24-hour notice. That's all we got. My kids had to go to e-school. I have 3 kids in junior high, elementary, and preschool. I got all the grade levels right now. Needing to go to e-school. We just got this rescue puppy. So we had this like dumb dog all of a sudden in the midst of us. I'm trying to figure out how to what is Zoom? I mean, I know we all know now, but like nobody knew what that was. You know, It's like Zoom, what is this Zoom? Google Meets, what in the world? Like, and try to have like a meeting while I've literally got 3 kids and a dog on top of me, can also need to be on a device for something. Same day, like in the next couple of weeks, my husband was working in another company. It was a startup company of our friends. They went upside down in the midst of this related to oil and gas prices. So in one day, I got my children's international school fee bill same day while we're like, they had rules that you couldn't even leave your compound, like your garden. Like my kids couldn't even like go ride a bike. It was so hardcore here. One person could go buy groceries. Like it was so hardcore.
Well, all right. So wait, so I'm going to pause you for a second. So this is why it was rapid. It was rapid because this is what we had to pull out. So when you say 24 hours, I mean, like every country, every location, every state had their own rules of what was going to be open, what was going to be closed, and a timing wise. I go, my brother is in Dubai, and he had a card. He had a card where if he wanted to go food shopping in Dubai, if you're caught outside without this card, it wasn't a fine, it was jail. Yeah. It was jail. Yeah. So when you say 24 hours, so you got this memo. A memo went out to everybody.
Government announcement. Okay. From the prime minister, shut it down. It's all shutting down. Everybody's on the home. Everybody's home. Like we're in a red zone. And funny part is at the time we had like less than 100 cases in the entire country. So I was watching the news.
What's the population?
Thousands a day. And I'm like, why? And everybody's living their life. And I'm like, we're literally in prison and we have 100 cases a day. Yeah.
What's the population? What's the population in Malaysia? 30 million. And you had 100
so 100 is nothing. And we went in this lockdown. So let me tell you, in the same day after all the kids, the dog, the business and all, my husband lost his job, like effective immediately. My seamstresses started calling me, asking me for food because they didn't have any savings. Some of them, some do because they worked with us long enough, but so we became like welfare, but I literally was like with my hands tied behind my back because I couldn't drive anywhere. I couldn't So e-commerce went crazy, but we barely had a website at the time, and much less we're not set up for that.
Wait, what do you mean you didn't have a website at the time?
We had a website, but we weren't doing like digital marketing at the time. It was in my like later plans of the year. I had just gotten my first investor, and I had worked for 6 months on pitches and business plans for 5 years, and none of those plans were valid anymore because they were related to things that weren't possible. So then, and long story in all of this, my father passed away of COVID. So on the other side of the world. So I was stuck literally like here. I couldn't even get out of the country at first. And I hadn't seen him in a year anyway. And I literally had to like leave my family here, fly to Texas by myself, which I never
how were
done.
you, but were you able to? You said you were in a contract, which I'm so sorry about your dad. But I mean,
I got special permission from the government to leave because of death.
Okay.
Yeah. So I flew into an ice storm in Texas. First one they had like my whole life, basically. It was like on. And in Malaysia, this whole thing has like, we just now, 3 weeks ago, have like reopened our boutiques and all.
Okay.
So the loss that I've been through personally and in my business for the past 18 months is like unspeakable. In so many ways, loss of revenue, loss of my husband's job, loss of my father, loss of my kids' education and kind of childhood. And it's not been, everybody has loss we all have had loss, but here, because of the way the government, we were slow to get vaccines as well. Now Malaysia is doing amazing. We're like in the top 20 countries. We're like 90% vaccinated because it's so government mandated, which I really appreciate. It's a very non-American thing, but I super appreciate it right now. Yeah. But we were just slower as a developing nation. We were just slower to get it. This is also where you see disparity, right? Like we're not first world, so we don't have the money to get it in. So while everyone was getting it in America, we're still in living lockdown because cases were going up to a couple thousand and stuff a day. Still, relatively speaking, nothing major, right? But they were so conservative about it. And we were just slower to receive vaccinations. So it took them a while to get a plan. But once they got the plan, actually the execution has been phenomenal. And now I'm super glad to be here, but it's been longer. So while you guys have had lots of, y'all had like the 100 days or whatever, you had to wear a mask. Like well, we've been wearing, like, you're forced to wear masks. It's not a question. Like, you don't question it, you do it. And, you know, and we've all been living in lockdown for almost 18 months. And so that's affected so much, affected my children, mental health, it's affected just so many things, right? Then loss added to it and all. Then my business loss, I have overhead, I have 3 outlets and I have 5 rentals I pay, and artisans who come from poor, you know, backgrounds. So how do you pivot during this?
Well, how do you, well, that's the question here. So how are you, I mean, again, so much to unpack. How are you doing? Because you, I mean, as we're starting, your energy is high. You are like, I can feel it up. Like we are the same clock. We're high energy. Despite what happens, we will sit there and be that essence of happiness for our family, our friends, etc. When my dad died of cancer 6 years ago, and my mother said, like, oh, your only job during the eulogy is to make people smile, to walk away and make people smile, because that's what you bring to our family. I can hear it from you, from everything that you've said. And like, literally, I can hear it from you. But how are you dealing with all of this? Because you just unloaded so much information. Like literally, I go, we were talking and I go, and I didn't even see this one coming, where in the last 3 minutes, you just unloaded so much information that I'm like, how are you breathing right now?
Yeah, I think that's by God's grace, actually, like genuinely speaking, not the fake, you know, Southern answer I'm supposed to tell you. So yeah, I think all of this for me personally has taught me, I'm a high capacity, high performer, like things a certain way, you know, person, generally can do a lot on my own. And this has like just pulled the rug out from under all of that for a long time, not just like a little bit, you know, like literally like pulled it out, and I'm like flat on my back half the time. So I think community helps, giving myself permission to be where I am helps. Grief is funny because not funny, it's like funny, weird, because the one thing that triggered for me, so I knew the basic things. I had gone through a depression like in college, and I kind of learned go back to the basics. You need to eat, sleep, exercise, you know, water. I mean, it sounds silly, but like, it's really like that, you know? And so I knew to kind of to minimize as much as I could, do only things that I really have to do and let the rest go. So I was pretty okay at that. And take care of myself and my family, like the immediate things around me, as much as possible. But what happened was, funny enough, whenever things have started opening up, something triggered in me and I like spiraled. And it was really strange, because you would think after all this time, the opening up of life and business and everything is actually what I want. It's true. But it did something in me, because I think at some level with grief, I got used to kind of living in this black hole of like, I couldn't find the light, and I was just there, because this lockdown and everything has lasted so long here that it almost got comfortable, right? Because it's like, no one knew when it's going to end, but I was kind of okay not moving forward a bit. So when things have started opening, that's where grief has actually surprised me and shocked me a bit, because it's affected me like it's shocked me how it's been negative on me, like to go through this. So it's like a new thing I'm processing still. Like I'm still processing with like, okay, well, life is moving forward now. It is going on. So I'm not quite the same as I was then. So how does this new version of me, I'm still kind of learning her, really. And how does this new version of Amy like live in this new life that we're doing? So it's a very like raw and vulnerable kind of process that I'm in right now. I'm still trying to figure that part out, I think.
I went to one of my interns' weddings in California. Same with like in New England, we've been very, very, I mean, Massachusetts is super strict. I live, as I mentioned, I live in a quintessential small town on the coast. So it's like, if you're inside the town, everyone knows we were in our bubbles. If you walked out and you told people you stayed in your house, you didn't go anywhere. We were very, very honest and very, very true to everyone. Boston and surrounding towns where the numbers were really high in regards to COVID. But then, I mean, we are at 80% fully vaccinated. I think we're 85% fully vaccinated in Massachusetts. And as of Monday, and I always say don't use time references, but I'm going to use it. As of Monday, it is for all the major hospitals and for police officers, if you're not vaccinated, you're out of a job. So it is like full on now with like, I mean, medical, legal, whatever's. And after 18 months, I went to my to California to my intern's wedding, and I was there for 12 days. I gave myself 12 days because I hadn't gone anywhere for 18 months. I mean, I went to Florida to go visit my mother to make sure she was okay, but I hadn't taken care of me for 18 months. And like you, high energy, we function, we're just going, we're smiling. The first 3 days being in Santa Monica, I exercised, I ate, I sit there, I slept, I cried. And I couldn't stop crying for 3 days. And I called my cousin, like, what's going on? He's like, this is what's happening right now. You're finally you're like, exactly. All this stuff is starting to come down as in what happened. And for me, I'm like, I'm not a crier. I find crying exhausting. I'm too busy to cry. It's not what I do. And so when it started happening, I was like, make it stop.
Whoa.
Like, what is this crap? It's like, I go, what is this? This is too much. And so for you, you're coming out of this, you're trying to figure out how to deal with the grief of your dad, your business, your family, your husband, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you're the rock star of the family. Not saying that your husband's not, but you are that. You keep everything alight and you keep everything going. You have 3 kids. You have a team of people that are depending on you, and you have a husband that not only do I love you, but we are a team together for this family. How would you, what advice would you, as you're going through this right now, what advice would you give to anyone that owns a business in another country or in your town? You have so much, this is definitely not going to be the last question. This is the last interview that we have together because you have so much that you have to offer. You have so much to offer to so many people that are listening to you, but how in the process, when you're in it, how are you trying to figure out how to keep this business afloat, keep my family afloat, making sure that they're there, checking on your mom? Your mom's here in the States by herself. Yeah. How are you doing all this and making sure that your husband's like, hey, we're still a team? Like, how are you even figuring out where do I start? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, where do you start of trying to get into the light?
And now a message from our sponsor. Since 2017, the Foundation for Business Equity has existed to support Black and Latinx-led companies in reaching their full potential by providing access to critical growth tools that include expanded networks, capital, and markets. To learn more about the Foundation for Business Equity, FBE, visit fbequity.org. And now, back to our guest.
I think the first thing is you go down to the basics of like what's really essential, because we all do. This is an American issue as well, I think more than even here, but busy and all, Americans are I come back there to visit and I'm exhausted, like just listening to what my friends and sister-in-laws and everybody just do and their kids. I'm just like, oh my God. So I think it's about really what are the essentials, like defining what do we have to get done in a day, like really. So there's been a couple of days I didn't get out of bed, and that was just somebody else had to do it, or their kids just watched some TV that day and ate grilled cheese sandwiches and they thought it was their best life ever. So somehow I got like mom of the year for that. But and other, like, it's just the whole, what's the expectation of yourself, and like really just like letting that stuff go. It's a major character. If you're someone like me, who has high expectations for myself more than I have for others, even that's been a process, a good one, actually. That's the good thing out of this. I think it's just realizing, hey, you know what? It doesn't have to be like that. So what can it be? So my kids have, they've watched more TV, had more screen time. My dog's not as trained as I thought he should be. I'm pretty sure they can all kind of read and like write. And we're working on character stuff, sort of. I say some cuss words more than I probably did. Then I say sorry a lot. Like, I don't know. I drink wine. I drink a lot of coffee. I pray. I sing worship songs. I talk to friends. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I don't talk to anybody. I was like, okay. My poor husband, I don't know what's up. He's just like, I think after like 15 years together, we just kind of like, we just kind of accept each other. Like, I don't know.
Well, one of my favorite questions I always ask is like, did you marry well?
Did I marry well? You might need a 2.0 for this one. There's a lot to that. Of course I married well.
because during, I mean, and I'm not married, and I have to say that I'm so jealous of everyone that got to spend time with a spouse, because I feel like it should be required, where when you get married, you have to go to a far, 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 far land with a computer, and you can work, but you're not allowed to be with anybody else with that spouse, because if you can make it, then you're fine. Because the divorce rate is up in the States.
Those of us with all the children and all the animals and all the spouses, all we wanted was your life for a little while. We're like, oh my God, could I go somewhere where there's nobody? Do you know what I would get done? Like, and I would like think, I would actually like have space in my head if there just wasn't. It's good that we're doing this at night, my time, because like my kids are actually in bed right now, I think, but at any moment that could change, you know, it's like, so you can't even like go to the toilet anymore. It's just like, okay, come on in, you know.
Amy, what would you say to someone that is looking? I mean, so a lot. I mean, I'm sure you saw and you heard, but also you're working with individuals that are looking for something more, looking for something new. So things that are happening that we're seeing around the world, and especially what just happened. Like, so this past April, 4.4 million people left their good-paying jobs. 4.4 million people left their good-paying jobs, and then there were the individuals that people are blaming unemployment. This is why we can't find people at restaurants. This is why we can't find people at Dunkin' Donuts. But guess what? Unemployment ended, and those jobs still didn't get filled, because for the first time ever, and I mean, this is my belief, the first time ever, individuals that had no opportunity whatsoever were getting paid to take online classes. That classes were never online classes. So now they had the first time ever, they had the opportunity to take care of themselves. What would you say to someone that's like looking for some self-growth? Throughout your entire life, you've been challenging yourself and you've been seeing the world, and you took yourself out of an environment that you could have been comfortable right where you were forever and a day.
Yeah.
What would you say to individuals that are looking to make changes personally and also professionally?
I think take the risk. I think somebody and I were talking the other day, the difference, I think one difference with me, and you learn this being an entrepreneur, they're calculated risks, don't worry. But like, you know, you need the data and the numbers, but like, if you really are, if something's like really on your heart, or like you really like want to do that thing, if you're a mom staying at home and you really wanted to get a master's degree or something, actually you can do that now online. You know, if you are somebody in a career, but you wanted to learn a new hobby or something, you know what I mean? Like you can do this stuff. So I think the difference is taking the risk, because it will always pay off. I mean, I take my risks just get bigger and more, but you start with the small ones, right? So I'm able to take a bigger one now. I didn't jump into my business taking on investors and expanding global e-commerce to 40 countries like day one. I didn't even know what I was doing day one. You know, I didn't know what a zipper was, like what brand of zippers to buy. So, I mean, you know, much less having calls with digital marketing agencies about, you know, this back end stuff. Like, so you just learn it, you just do it. But you build this muscle. It's kind of like working out, right? Like when you build this muscle of risk taking, and I mean good risk, not just like let's jump off of things or something. I did that stuff when I was younger, but you know, like what risk, like what's really on your heart out there? Like you get one life. This is my thing. We all get one life here, right? In this earth. So what are you going to do with it? Like, you know, I don't want to live with regrets. That's my big thing, is I don't want regrets. I don't have regrets, but like, I don't want to sit in older in life when I'm like, oh, I wish I would have, I should have this, like those kind of comments to me are like, why not? Like, and also I'm kind of like, someone's doing it. If not you, someone's going to. So if someone's going to do it, why not you? Like, really, why not you? I mean, again, I run a business based on something I had no skill set for. Okay. Like no background for. I'm a designer, textile, you know, e-commerce, like none of that, and no context for. So I think my story is so out there. And so like, listen, if I can do this in a foreign country where I'm like the Jolly Green Giant and like, you know, got all these kids and things and stuff and, you know, whatever, then like, don't tell me you can't do that. You know, like really don't tell me you can't do that. So I think it's just about, I don't know, a bit of self-belief and take a risk, right? And realizing, because you've got one life, so make it count.
You are a woman in a foreign country wearing a green dress, saying that you're a Jolly Green Giant.
I want my green dress for you to be the Jolly Green Giant.
I go, well, all right, so you're a woman in a foreign country, building a business that you are you're learning about the textiles, but you also have to learn about the business aspects. I'm a marketing strategist. I love everything marketing. I mean, I can't turn it off. My family and friends are like, stop it. I go, I can't. Marketing is everywhere I go. But when I started my company 12 years ago during the recession. I'm in my MBA class. I'm told I'm overqualified. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I did everything right. I worked in the media. I worked for the governor. This is what I do. And now I have to like do it for myself. MBA teaches you how to excel a company, not how to start a company. Yeah. You're learning about the textiles and you're like, I go, okay, this is what I do in regards of I'm working with like Anna. I go, but now you have to learn how to do the business part of it. I can't stand the business part of what I do. I love what I do. So how did you learn that? Because that is like by far one of the biggest barriers where there's a product, there's a skill, but now I have to learn the finance, the operations, the hiring. You have 3 brick and mortars and 2 that you had, and then you added 1 during the pandemic. So how did you, which I love that. I think that is badass in every single way, because this is when I get so excited when people are building, when they realize there's opportunity. So you saw the opportunity, but you're still having to learn the business aspect of this. And you're not just selling, you're selling in 40 countries, did you say, or 44?
Yeah, in our e-commerce, we ship to 40 countries so far.
40 countries. So how are you learning all this stuff? Like how are you learning it? Who's helping you? What advice would you give in regards of like getting to the point where you like it a lot more versus I detest the business aspect of it? Because I think that's one of the biggest barriers. People are great at what they do, skill sets, product development, but they despise the business, the other end of it. And then they walk away or they fail at it because they're not asking for help. And they're like, I go, this is where like, I'm done. I'm hands up. Where were you in regards of learning and how did you get past the barriers of like, I don't know how to do this. This is over my head.
Yeah. So I had everything was just grassroots learn as you go, fly by the seat of your pants, fake it till you make it kind of American thing we do. So I did a lot of that. But eventually that also like, that catches up with you soon, right? So, I actually don't know this. My husband has an MBA, so he was working another job. And at the time I would just like ask him questions at night. Like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Give me layman terms, like just break down all those complicated things and just like profit loss, what I need to do, like numbers, like help. So he helped me structure things a lot. He's always been very supportive on that end for me. He now works in our company. But other times he has off and on different times over the years, but right now he is. And so he's heading up business development and leads the finance team, which thank God I just like sign off that they can pay the bills and I like hope the money's there kind of thing. Like, thank you. But still I actually do more than that, but I try not to. But I think you have to know certain levels of everything. If you're going to run a business, you need to understand it conceptually. You can't be ignorant and naive about things if it's yours, because you're responsible end of the day as CEO or founder or whatever. But you need to get people around you. So there was a government program that came out here as well that was really helpful. I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, we got a small grant from the Malaysian government, and it was this concept of social enterprise. And that was really my first exposure to terminology around what I was already doing. And so this program we did with them really helped me like get I'm doing this, that's called this. Oh, okay. Get my terminology and things around it. And then I've had coaches. I'm a big fan of coaching and mentoring. Like I have a mentor in Turkey to this day, who's an American running a tourism business there, that husband and wife work together. So they mentor me in different things. I've got coaches now as investors, a group of coaching teams that are Malaysians that give me a different local kind of perspective on things. I've always reached out. I keep relationships as much as possible with living so far, but I just always believe in like the pay it forward thing as well. So I try to also, help when I can and ask when I need help. And so I think being a learner, that's my point. You've got to be a learner. You've got to constantly be learning, constantly, like you never finish, right? So and I hire people who are learners. I don't need the highest skilled person. I need someone with a good attitude who wants to learn. I'd much rather have that than the best skilled person with bad attitude and thinks they know it all. So that's just kind of my culture I built in my company, was we're always learning. We tell every week, what did you learn last week? It could be like I made a new recipe. It doesn't have to be about work per se, but we always share, what did you learn? Like, that's just a huge part of the culture I think you have to create if you want to keep moving forward. So I think that's the biggest part. Surround yourself with people better than you, ask for help, be a learner, constantly be learning. But to me, that's fun. So you have to enjoy. I like to learn. So I don't, there's certain topics I wish I didn't need to know about, but most of them I enjoy learning something new as well. So I think that's a big part of it.
You are in Malaysia. You are a woman, you are American, you are the epitome of America in most people's eyes are Texas. I mean, people see me like, I go to countries, they're like, I go, what kind of gun do you own? I go, I don't own a gun. And they're like, I go, but everyone, the Western I go, it's not all like that. So like Texas, New York, California, it's like whenever I go overseas, they only know those three locations, which is really, really funny. I'm first generation born in America. My culture is very, very important. So whenever you hear the word Haiti, everyone's like, they meet me, they're like, oh, you're from Haiti. I'm like, yeah. So not all Haiti is like, oh, it's so you're from Haiti. They're like, well, it's like, how big is that? I go, it's the size of like New England, like from like, from Maine to Florida. They're like, no. I'm like, I go, it's actually bigger than that, but I'm just going to give you some context.
I'm going to make you feel better.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. I'm just trying to educate you. They're like, oh my God, the earthquake. I go, did it affect your family? I'm like, it's bigger than that. So just, yes, I'm trying to educate you as you go. You are an expat. In all essence of the word, you're an expat. And yet you have a lot of Malaysians that are working for your company. How are you keeping the culture alive? Because the Malaysian government has given you money to grow the business here in Malaysia. Obviously, they're bringing attention to the country. How are you keeping the culture alive? I mean, you've been there for 15 years, you said?
Yeah.
You've been there for 15 years. 3 of your children, not three, but your three
all
children,
of them.
all of your children born, raised in Malaysia, obviously bilingual. Or is it more than one language, or is it English?
They're learning Mandarin also. They speak a bit of Mandarin.
So they're trilingual children. Yay, trilingual children! Yay, I'm trilingual as well. And so, how is the community overall seeing you? Where like, are they excited that you're here? You're creating jobs. You're creating visibility to their country, or are they? Wait, someone else is taking jobs away where it should have been a Malaysian that created something like. So what are the thoughts of the individuals that are around you right now?
Well, it took a long time to build trust, because in this part of the world, trust is something you earn. It's not given. So where I'm from, you give people trust. Like, I'm trusting you to have this conversation, and like, I'm telling you like vulnerable, raw things about me, and unless you give me some reason later not to, So we tend to extend our trust openly, freely, and less than then it can back up. Like if someone takes advantage of that, right, we back it up. That's kind of how we operate. It's completely opposite of that here. And that's really hard for me as an American, because I'm also an open person. So when I came here, it's every emotion and every feeling is closed, and your cards are really tight to your chest. And only when you've been friends or know someone for a long time and have proven to them, does it start slowly opening themselves, but definitely trust. Mm-hmm. So when I wanted to then be a foreigner working here in a craft industry that's already like a minority, and, villages and different, even like small town, like cultures and all, trying to convince the people there in my broken language here, that I was there to actually help them. Like they just had also been taken advantage of, especially by foreigners in different industries like oil and gas. I mean, they've come in and taken their treasures, if you will. So their culture, their resources and all, and exploited them and like made money off of them. So that's all they know. And they've seen Hollywood. That's literally the only context. So you've either got exploitation or like Hollywood. And I'm kind of like neither of those. So it took them a long time to really believe me. And it took a lot of consistency on my part of proof to like keep giving work, keep hiring people, keep not asking for something back, keep being honest, keep not taking advantage of, keep paying fairly, like years before they actually like trusted me. So now I'm 10 years into my business, and I work with 200 artisans across Malaysia, who most of whom I'm known, obviously Jolly Green Giant Lady's coming, here she is. But I'm more respected because I've proven. So it was essential for me. While I set up this company to do good and to help communities, right? Like, but it's almost like, even if I hadn't have done it, that was my intention first, and then to put a business model around it. But had I come in the opposite and had a business idea, and I think I still would have needed to also be doing good, because I am this foreigner who is working with a very national, like heritage craft that's part of their culture. It's not just like I found a cool product and shipped it out, So generally speaking, a lot of Malaysians tell me thank you. It's really sweet. Like the ones who get it, like customers and people will just say like, oh, thanks, Amy, for doing this. Like, it's so great. The one comment I get consistently though, for years, this is a funny one. They'll say rugila, which in Malay means it's a waste. Like, why? And to my face, this is that thing. I'm like, don't say that. But now I'm used to it. So I'm like, okay, I know what you're going to say. They literally say, this is the one comment that's a funny one. They're like, oh, it's such a waste that it took a foreigner to revive our craft. Like for them, not to just export it and get international exposure, but literally for them to appreciate their own thing. And they're like, it's like too bad it took it's too bad it took a foreigner to do that, not our own people. It should be us. Yeah. And I used to that, like, kind of offended me, like, well, okay, here I am. So you just said that in my face. Thanks. But I realized what they mean. And it is like it should have been, but it wasn't, And so actually and I always say back, I say, but you could come to Texas. Honestly, it's just having an outside perspective. I said, you could come to Texas and see something totally different than I do because it's normal to me or whatever. And you might appreciate it and see an opportunity that I wouldn't see because I've just been in it my whole life, or whatever. So yeah, but that is the one. It's like, oh, it's such a waste that it took a foreigner. And I'm like, such a waste, right? Like, it's such a waste.
Well, what? It's so interesting that you say that, because in Haiti, I haven't been to Haiti. Like right now, they're having tons of kidnappings. Yeah. I can't go to Haiti right now. Well, pandemic and kidnapping. It's just either way, I can't go right now.
But it is not really a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. But it is one of those sad moments for me because there's so many amazing Haitians that are doing things all over the world, and we want to give back to the country, but the Haitians that are there feel that you left us. Even if, I was like conceived in Haiti, I was born in America, I would love to do tons of things. And me walking around proud as can be, saying that I'm Haitian first. Literally, I always tell people, like, don't be upset that it wasn't you, but find ways that we can collaborate together. Mm. And I go, and don't be mad that there's an individual on the outside, because like we are still promoting the country in all the different ways. So I think that's one of the things where that too bad mentality, I get it, but at the same time you could say, you know what, let me learn from Amy and what she's doing, and maybe I could sit there and like create something that I can maybe we're making the zippers and now we're working together with Amy. And so there's definitely ways where they can collaborate once they get out of that mindset.
And I've seen mindset change, because you have to understand, this is a decade for me now into this, right? And I've seen it is a developing nation. That's also something people don't understand. So we're like amazing buildings and Starbucks around the corner and shopping malls that'll blow your mind away. And like, the potholes and the systems and paying your bills is like a nightmare. So it's still developing here. And I think you have to accept that. Like, if you don't accept that first, you're going to hate it here, because nothing works like half the time. So it's just developing. So, but I've seen a huge amount of progress just in the country, but even in mindset of people, and I think internet has helped that obviously in the past 10 years. Right. And then new generation coming up, and then even COVID, back to that, it made Malaysians, we were literally all like imprisoned at our houses, like literally couldn't go out. So all you had was the internet. And so that's where e-commerce came in. So we progressed probably as a country, as a developing nation, 10 years in like a year because of the demand now. And the only way to buy your groceries for the first time ever was actually online. And we didn't have online platforms, like one or two apps even set up. So everybody made an app, and everybody, and so innovation has come, and development and things have come really fast now. And definitely, even from COVID, but even there was progress happening then. So I think now the mindset of people is much different. Like they also generally more appreciate what we're doing. And actually right now, 70% of my online orders come from Malaysia. So they're from Malaysians now, which is cool.
See, that is another huge thing, because most people that are in the country that are creating don't buy in the country, they buy outside. And so the pride in the product that's huge.
Well, because we pivoted, this was my pivot in COVID. We were making PPE gear for hospitals when we couldn't do other stuff. We got a corporate sponsor. That was my big pivot, to keep people employed, not for profit per se, but to just keep people going, to contribute to what was going on in the nation. And so that got a lot of good press for us. I didn't do it for that reason, but it happened to get a lot of good press for us. Yep. Then when face masks started being required, and reusable ones and all, we did a ton of research. We had some of our masks certified in the UK for filtration and everything, certain designs and all, following the Ministry of Health guidelines in Malaysia. And that's what triggered Malaysians to start buying it, because before they saw us as this like expat thing or foreigner or tourist kind of thing. And now it's like, oh, we all were buying things, and our e-commerce got set up and we were doing the face mask. So now we keep designing, we look at data now to make our decisions, right? So we look at who is hitting the website, men, women, what age, from where, what do they want to buy? So we start designing products and things. And what's cool to me in this 1 year, like since last April, so maybe a year and a half, that's really our only e-commerce growth, really. We have that long of mass, and we've hit really solid. We're growing, and we're like focused on Singapore as well now, and eventually we'll get to the US. We get orders, but like we're not running ads and stuff there yet, but now in Singapore. And it's a lot of Malaysians now buying because maybe they first got the mask from us, but then they also added that skirt or that painting kit or the bag, and then gave it to their friend, and then word of mouth and reviews and sent this here and there. So that's been really fun part to watch, and hard work also. You understand that. But yeah, so it is cool for me to see Malaysians who laughed at me at first. My neighbors laughed at me when I made homewares out of this fabric, because they were like, we just wear this at home, Amy. It's like a nightgown thing. Why are you putting it on a placemat? And now they're like, my homewares are one of our top selling products globally, and they're buying it now. And it's just funny because I'm like, really? Because you made fun of me 10 years ago. But it's really cool to see the progression, I think, as a country, develops as well.
I think that I'm very sad because we have to wrap up, but again, every single part of this conversation, you're like, you gave me so much that I'm like, oh, Amy, you're my new best friend in Malaysia. I'm so excited.
You're Malaysian best friend, sure.
I love it. Well, it was like, I have my best friend, Melissa, in Australia. Everyone's like, your best friend. I go, how many best friends do you have? I go, every country, different best friends. I go, Melissa and I, like back in the day where I was like you, I just gallivanted. I watch Facts of Life. And I go, oh, they're in Australia. I want to go to Australia and watch a symphony in the opera house. And my mom's like, okay. And I did. I went and I lived in Australia for a year. And and Melissa and I were dating twins, fraternal twins. And we got rid of the twins, and we've stayed best friends for for eons. So random ways that you have best friends. But Melissa and I, every other month, we sit and hop on Zoom, and we're like, just catch up, because it's like we never didn't see each other. So it works out really well. So Amy, there you go. Just want you to know.
I'll be your Malaysian best friend.
I know. I'm like, whether sometimes it's recorded, sometimes not recorded. It doesn't matter. I know, as we overlap on each other. All right. So, this has to come to an end, which is very, very sad for me. But this is, again, not the last time we're going to talk. But two more questions. There's one that I end all, but there's one more major question, is that, where do you see the industry and the industry going? Because you are in retail. We're coming into the holiday season. And then we're going to then year 2 of the pandemic. Where do you see the industry going overall in regards to e-commerce? Because you said that this country that you're in, it wasn't even a thought. And within 1 year, like, you had been working on this for a decade, but within 1 year, it was like, holy crap, this is a game changer. So where do you see the industry going for developing countries? So you're going to be the voice of that. You're going to be the voice for so many developing countries that I speak to. But where do you see it going? Where we're going to go back to eventually, we're not going to go back to the way it was, but we're going to go back to a even tilt where things aren't going to be in crates in California or on boats that are stuck or in China. So where is it? Where do you believe the industry is going for developing countries that are coming up with a lot of that retail?
Well, I think the bigger question is asking where are consumers going, because we sort of have to respond to that first, right? So I think where consumers are going is people care more about impact, and they're asking questions now. We care about environmental issues that we didn't care about 10 years ago. We know more about it, right, as well, too. We care about sustainability, we care about fairness, and we care about purpose, we care about uniqueness. So I think all of these brands like mine, who are often made in these developing nations, if done well and done properly, I mean, there's plenty of things not fair, the big factories, and there's, go find every documentary you want about that, the cost of fashion is a big one, but I think if you do it well and as best you can, in a term of really wanting to help people and also grow a business at the same time, we have a real opportunity in a developing nation in this part of the world, because we have people do things with their hands. They cook, they sew, they build, they make things and stuff. Using your hands is a big part of what happens here. They're creative. And so if we can really have a business model that connects with where a consumer is, of wanting a story of impact and a story of who made this, and if you're wearing a story and you're wearing your impact and you're wearing art and uniqueness, that if you can connect as a brand to that and really have a business model around that, you have a ton of opportunity, because eventually people don't want to buy here. H&M's like huge, right? And like the Zara's, H&M is like, they're more the British brands, but huge fast fashion, right? And so I think more and more people, especially millennials and younger, who are finally now starting to earn some money. Hello, like they all finally got jobs here. So maybe some, but they want to spend it differently. And my kids will definitely want to spend it. They don't even use straws. My kids are like anti things because they get it more. My son's vegetarian now because he thinks beef is like, so bad on the earth. And I'm like, well, okay. Like, can you imagine me telling my mom and dad I was vegetarian in Texas, like at 10? I'm like, what the? They didn't know what that is.
You know what? When I lived in Texas, that was the only time in my lifetime that I was vegetarian.
Oh God!
Well, back, you know what? Because back in the day they were feeding. Back in the day they were feeding their cows. A lot of farms were feeding cows cement so that way they could weigh more. So then I'm like, I go, But the second I came back home, I'm like, bring on the steak, baby. Bring on my steak.
And that grass-fed beef, we're in for it. But anyway, so I think actually, as a voice for developing nation, artisans and producers and manufacturers, if you do it right, you do it well. Actually, there's a whole market beyond where you're from, even, and eventually it will come to where you are. So Malaysians are starting, some of them are starting to ask that. Some of them are still throwing rubbish out the window, like in the 80s, like, like McDonald's paper just goes out the window on the highway, But so that's different, but again, some people are starting to ask that question and wanting to be more sustainable and have a story of impact and support good causes with their money and want to know where they're spending their money more now, even on consumable goods. I mean, people are going to buy clothes forever. They're going to buy stuff. I'm not anti-consumerism, because actually I need you all to buy things. Like that's like a thing. You've got to buy stuff that employs people, but it's just, you're going to buy it anyway. So what are you going to buy and where are you going to spend it? And what is it? Gifting, like gift giving is this time of the year, right? You're going to give a gift to how many people? So why not give them a story that's actually impactful and that actually did some good and it's pretty and nice? I mean, it should be pretty and nice and good quality. If it's not, that's another, we will never compromise on our quality. Like ask anybody on my team, our QC is like off the charts, because I think we have to even do better because we're doing it for a good cause. So there's a stigma around a handicraft. I'm like, we're not selling a handicraft. We're selling sustainable fashion that was artisan made and hand painted. You're wearing art when you're wearing one of a kind pieces when you buy our product. So you should feel good in it. So I think keep developing, keep practicing excellence. And there is a huge market out there. You just got to connect with it. And we're still constantly, my biggest issue, you'll know this from marketing side, is still we're living this incredible story of impact and it's like amazing, but we're still really lacking in communicating it. Like we're doing it. It's still how to get it out there, to help you put on the website. But like that.
You're doing it right now. Like you taking that time.
That's why I'm on your podcast to tell you about it.
You could be asleep right now. You could be like, my kids are asleep. I could just have been like, go to bed early today. I have a lot of work. But just you communicating and taking the time, because, and this is one of the reasons why I started the podcast was, because I lost all my business at the beginning because I was traveling. My role is to travel and go to other locations and help with marketing and do speeches and do workshops. But I got to sit there and share your stories. I go and learn who you are, who are the people in the neighborhood, and not just for a 5-10 minute piece. I got to speak to you for a longer period of time to learn who you are. And that's what people need to know, who all of Amy is. So I appreciate you just giving me the time, which I really, really love. Okay. So here's that final question. No matter how many times I talk to you, this is the final question that I always ask you. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your professional ask and what would be your personal ask? So 2 questions.
This personal one's hard for me right now in particular, I think. Professionally would be to buy our products. Like we actually ship globally and we offer, get this, we actually give you free shipping, and it's like DHL Express or, FedEx, or like it's real shipping. Like it's going to get to you in a week or less for free if you buy $100 or more. And it costs me about $25 to ship that order. And we eat it for you because we want you to buy our products. So get on my website and buy things. There's discount codes if you're clever how to get that. But we ship internationally. And I think just like, that's my professional ask, just for holiday season, for things coming up, for the next gift, for your next piece of apparel, like try something from our brand and let us, ship it to you and see what you think. Give us reviews and all of that. Follow us on social media. Those kind of things really help tell the story. Personally, I don't know. This is like hard for me. Can I just ask anybody to take a risk today? Like, just take a risk. Like, whatever that thing is, like, just look at me. I can do it. And so can you. It's not like, it's complicated, and you don't ever want to know the end before you start, because you'll never do it if you know all the things you have to go through. But just take the first step. I think like that would make me feel really good, and make my dad feel really good, I think, who I lost this year, to say, like, take the risk and do something that counts.
I love both those answers. I go, I personally am going to go on the website and buy, because I always say that I don't want to just have you on to speak. I mean, this is my give back to the world, where I want to have as many entrepreneurs from all over the world talking. I mean, you are now our 23rd country, yay, that we've had on, which I'm very, very excited about. And so hopefully I'll have other people from Malaysia on the podcast, but also just the fact that you are providing such knowledge without you even realizing that. You're providing comfort to individuals. There are a lot of people that own their own businesses. There are a lot of people that have lost their businesses. There are a lot of people that have lost loved ones during this pandemic. And they just think that, like, I'm going to end. And then they're watching you and thinking, holy crap, like, look at Aiko with everything that she has going on. And she is still smiling. She's still laughing. She's still, like, a badass. You're a badass. And I think that's one of the things where I enjoy learning about you and finding you. And when you guys say yes to me, I always say, I am not Oprah. I love just like laughing and smiling and learning and asking questions, because that's what I can do. This is like, I was that kid where when I was younger, my parents were like, she's going to get kidnapped, because I would just wander and just talk to everybody. And I still do. I mean, as an adult, I still do that, where I'm like, you have so much. And I'm like, and there's something about you that that I gravitate towards. And so thank you for staying up. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for fueling a freaking community that you're like, I came to visit here. I don't like the food. I am out. And you're like, okay, well, 15 years later, I'm not really out. But I thank you so much as a first generation kid, thank you very much for doing what you do, because whenever I meet anyone in any country and they say, like, I saw someone, and this is what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It means a lot. It means a lot. And you don't know how much you are doing for so many people that you just don't know. I mean, randomly someone's going to walk up to you and say, like, thank you, Amy, for doing blah, blah, blah. And you're going to be like, where the hell did you come from? And I hear it all the time randomly. I get emails and I heard you in a speech. I'm like, well, what did I say? And when they can then say verbatim to me 12 years after I go, holy crap, you held on to like something the crazy dumbass me from 12, like what? So I am so thankful that you exist. I am thankful for your parents. I'm thankful for your brother. I'm thankful for your experiences. Thank you for being here. Thank you for like just working your ass off despite every single obstacle and everything that's happening in your life. And even those days that you don't want to get out of bed, but when you do, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. This was like a pleasure. And I love the opportunity to share the story, and don't get a lot of opportunities like in the state side of it. So, it's my home turf over there. So I appreciate just the opportunity, and you're really fun to talk to also.
I'm a crazy lady. I'm a crazy lady. But
from one crazy lady to another, I like it.
Until next time, my friend. Just keep on. And I can't wait to like literally get online and buy one of your items. I don't know what I'm going to buy yet, but I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Blair. I'm the founder and CEO of Batik Boutique. And Batik Boutique is a social enterprise based in Malaysia, partnering with artisans all over the country and women from marginalized communities. We make hand-dyed textiles and make them into finished products and ship them all around the world. Originally, I'm from Texas in the United States, and I've been living in Malaysia for 13 years. When I first encountered batik, I don't think I knew the difference between the layering, what was machine produced, what was a certain material, where it was from. I mean, I definitely didn't know. I thought it was very unique, and I thought it was colorful and pretty, but I didn't understand the complexities with it. But I'll tell you, the first time I went to a village was in Terengganu. The first time I asked a taxi driver at the time, because there was no Waze and no Grab, to take me to where this pretty piece of fabric was made. And he dropped me off at a rice paddy. and pointed out into the field and said, out there. And I literally walked across the rice paddy with my husband and 2 children at the time and went knock, knock, knock on the door. And as soon as they opened the door, it was like this amazing other world opened up. And I saw these people, these men from villages just like, you know, blocking away and sweating. And I saw these women just painting. And when I understood the complexity and the time and the skill that goes into it, that forever changed my impression of batik. It's really stunning, and I think the whole world should get to experience it. When I first moved to Malaysia, I was working in tourism, and I found that I just loved the culture. I love the people of Malaysia. I love the food of Malaysia. I mean, who doesn't? And I also thought at the same time that there was a gap in the market. I was a bit frustrated when I wanted to travel back to visit my family or friends that I couldn't find a quality produced gift and souvenir that was actually locally made or benefiting anyone, or was in colors or prints that I liked. So I always thought that someone should do something about that, and usually that means someone else should do something about that. And when I moved to Kuala Lumpur and I met these women and I saw their need and I saw their desire to really want to make a change in their family, I merged what I knew from tourism, which was this fact that tourists will come spend money and extra money when they travel and buy something quality to take back where they're from, with also the skill set that women needed to sew. So I merged this idea of a tourism gift with what the skill set was with sewing, and that's actually how Batik Boutique was born. I first began Batik Boutique as a charity effort in 2010 when I met women living in the PPR flats, which is the government housing, the subsidized housing in Malaysia. And in 2013, I made a choice to become a Sendirian Berhad, a business, as a social enterprise, because I realized to really help a community to make impact, we needed a business model around it. Batik Boutique exists to disrupt the cycle of poverty amongst artisans in Malaysia. So the main things we discovered through all of our on-the-ground research and interacting with people and communities here was that often artisans and women specifically, they needed skills training and they needed an opportunity to earn fair wages. So the 2 things that whatever we do, we keep as our mantra before us is that we provide skills training and we provide economic opportunity. You know what's really cool about being an entrepreneur is that I wake up every day with a feeling of potential and a feeling of hope and a feeling of purpose in what I'm doing. And yeah, I do lots of things every day. I'm a mother of 3 children. I wake up every morning, I settle my kids' breakfast and their clothing and their food, and I, get them out the door if they're going to school or set them up on their e-learning. I do all of those things that we all do. I put my lipstick on in the car half the time, and I run into the office and I greet everyone in the morning, and I walk in with a sense of expectation that what I'm doing matters and that there's opportunity. So you never know. I spend a lot of my days in our office, which is upstairs from our boutique. I do a lot of conversations about logistics and design and corporate customers and spreadsheets and finances and HR and all these things. That's daily in my life. But I'm doing that with the sense of you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, you don't know who you're going to talk to today. You don't know what opportunity will present itself. And lots of potential opportunities come, and of course they don't all tak jadi, right? Like they don't all happen, but some do. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's the exciting part with like my life. It's never going to be the same thing every day. A lot of days are monotonous and are very normal, but I'm just really driven by that potential and the hope that something is going to happen today that's going to be a game changer. And we've just seen that happen over the years too. So it's what keeps me going. I think as a woman entrepreneur, I think we have an advantage because we're highly connected to the reason behind what we're doing. And we're very connected to intuition. And I think at the same time, sometimes that's our weakness as well. I do think that we need to toughen up and that we need to work hard. And I think my advice is to help people understand nothing in life comes without hard work. It doesn't matter how lucky you get or how fast you think you can scale the business. End of the day, it's your work and it's your character that matters. And so for me, I'm trying to grow a company based on character and work ethic. And I love working with other women to bring them into that, to see us grow. That's my favorite thing to do. And I just challenge other women out there to don't shy back. like go for it. Go for your dreams, go for it. But know you're gonna work hard too along the way, and it's just worth it. It's worth it, but do it.